I'm Andrew Phillips and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be refinishing this dresser. As you can see here, it's outdated and definitely in some need of attention. So let's go ahead and get started. These are the items that I'm going to be using. First of all, we're going to need sandpaper, obviously. What I'm using here is the 120 to 180 grit sandpaper. As I mentioned before, we're going to be using probably around 160, maybe try the 120, but I'm thinking probably more the 160 so we can get a nice surface scratched up so it'll receive the paint properly and also remove any imperfections. Next, you're going to need either a flathead or a Phillips screwdriver, whatever your hardware is connected with on the inside, so you have to check the head of the screw. Next, you're going to need whatever paint you're going to be using. As mentioned already, what I'm not doing in this video, I am not refinishing it with a stain, so we're going to be actually painting it. So what I'm using here, and this is my first time actually using this, it's a newer product, this is the Ultra Cover Paint and Primer Ultimate by Rust-Oleum, because the colors I needed were only available in this series. Not too thrilled about high gloss for furniture. We'll see how it looks. If not, we can always come back and get rid of the gloss with either like a matte or satin clear coat. But for now, this is what we're using. Next, you're going to need some kind of a wood filler and then an electric sander. You can use a block sander if you want to do it by hand, but personally, I'm going to use the electric because I don't have the time to do it all by hand. So these are the items that we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and get started. What we have here is a dresser that, in my opinion, is outdated. I actually picked this up at Goodwill. Roughly, I think it was like around 20 bucks. And I was looking for this basic shape. Just had our entire house was completely redone, carpet, paint, all that stuff. It's all been redecorated. So this was pretty much purchased for the purpose of adding it now that everything's been renovated. And I wanted this shape. So what I need to do now is I need to get rid of this finish, and I'm going to actually paint it. I'm not going to stain it. If you were doing a stain, that's not going to be covering in this video because that would be a different process where you want to get all the way down to the wood so it'll absorb the stain and all that stuff. All that I'm going to be doing is taking approximately 120 to 160 grit sandpaper and just pretty much getting rid of the surface, getting rid of any of the flaws, so that way we can do the primer and paint over that. Also need to fill these holes. I already did one, but you'll see there's additional holes. When this was purchased, it had 2 points of entry there for the actual handles. These have already been changed out because this is the color that I need to match what I have going on there in my room. So what we're going to do now is just fill those holes, fix any imperfections, and I'll get a close-up of some of the damage here. We're going to fix that as well. Then we're going to lightly sand it and then go ahead and mask off the areas that don't need to be painted, and then go ahead and start giving the final coat of paint on this thing. So let's go ahead and start removing all the drawers, and then we'll also get the hardware taken off as well. Now, as you're removing this, it's not a bad idea to also check inside, make sure there's no loose, broken pieces that need to be fixed as well, kind of cover everything in one shot. I'm going to go ahead and fill that hole, put a little bit of wood filler in there. What I'm going to do is just lay it in there. Once it dries, we'll come over and give a second coating because this one's going to drop a little bit, sink down in there as it's doing right now. So we'll let that dry, then we'll come back and give a second coat to level it up, and then when we sand it, it'll be nice and flush. As we wait for the wood filler to dry on the actual drawers, I'm going to go ahead and start sanding the cabinet itself. So we got the sander out. We're starting off with 120 grit. So let's go ahead and start stripping all this off. We're going to do pretty much all around the cabinet itself and along the front. We're not messing, obviously, with the inside. Once we're ready to paint, we're going to mask all this off because I don't want to be getting paint inside on the natural wood. Same with the drawers as well. We're only doing the finished parts. So let's go ahead and fire it up and start it going. mind, if you're doing this indoors, you want to make sure you have a lot of ventilation, or even wear some kind of a respirator. I'm outside, it's a beautiful day, so I'm not using that. Probably should have used some kind of a mask because it is throwing a lot of dust, but got everything sanded down nicely. As mentioned already, we're not restaining it, we're only painting it, so I don't want to cut through down to the bare wood where we have to use a sealer and all that stuff. So just really getting the gloss off of it and any imperfections. This is all nice and smooth in here. This is great. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this down. Then we're going to go ahead and sand down the actual faces of the drawers themselves, get those wiped down, and then we can start painting. After we sand everything down, we're going to get ready to apply a second coat of wood filler to smooth it out level. Go ahead and apply that on there. Fill it real good. And now that those are done, we'll go ahead and take the spackle knife and just go ahead and spread it out across the surface nice and flush so we can get it nice and level and nice and smooth. Since this dresser has legs right here, we're going to go ahead and unscrew those and remove them completely. That way they don't get any paint on them. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and mask all this because I don't want to get any overspray into the cabinet itself. So I'm just going to take some newspaper here. We're just going to tape it right over this entrance here where we don't want it to be on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll be right back, and then we can start spraying this piece here. Everything is done being masked here, so we're ready to start painting. Left a little bit down here. I don't really care if anything gets on that. So let's go ahead and get the paint and start applying it. Weather's great, so this is perfect for application. Alright, well the first coat has been done. Actually looks very good. We're going to let that dry a little bit, and then we'll come back to do a second light coat, overspraying it the same way we did. That way it doesn't bubble up, we don't have any issues. And that'll take care of this cabinet. While this is drying, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the drawers themselves. That way we don't waste time. I just went ahead and removed all of the newspaper, masking all in there so we can see it. It's actually looking very good. It's drying very nicely. We did the second coat on it. So let's go around here. It's not 100% perfect, but for what I'm doing with it, it's good enough. So there it is there. You can see it better. Now we're waiting for the drawers to be done. Just did the second coat on them, and then we'll let that all dry, put it all together, and see how it turns out. These are pretty much dry to touch, not fully cured, so we'll probably let them sit overnight, but I'm going to at least start putting the hardware back on so we can mount those into the cabinet, take a look and see how everything looks. From what I can see right here, they turned out actually very good. A couple little flaws that still came through, and I'll get a close-up of those, but for the most part it turned out pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and start putting these in. Don't want to tighten them too hard yet because you don't want the paint to get damaged. So I'm just tightening them just enough to where they can be handled, but not to where they're pressed up against the paint. This top drawer here turned out perfect. As you're coming down, you can see, and it's very faint, but you can see a little bit of a marking where I filled the hole there. Nothing major, but still not perfect. And then right there where I patched that one corner, kind of broke off there. So we come here and open this up, take a look inside. What I did is I only painted the tops and the front and sides. I left the inside, the wood grain. We went ahead and masked that off, so that way it still has the nice wood grain finish, the way that it should look. That way it doesn't look like it's all painted and sprayed and messed up. Plus it's a nice grain that it has in there, so it has a nice clean look. Okay, well, everything is pretty much done, put back together. It actually turned out pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and let it dry out a little bit, and then we'll take it inside the house. But that pretty much wraps it up. This is the color combination that I wanted to use to match the interior on how we decorated. If you want to know what these colors were, this particular one here is actually the Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover. It's the high gloss white sand. That's the color for that one. If you want to know what the gray is, that's actually called Thundercloud. That's also the same thing, part of the Ultra Cover as well. And the good thing with that is you get the paint and the primer all in one. That's also the high gloss of that one. And then the black is just a regular black, but it's part of the same series, which is also the Ultra Cover Paint and Primer Ultimate High Gloss. Personally, I didn't want to go with a glossy finish, but the colors that I needed, which were these two here, the white sand and the Thundercloud, only came in that high gloss, so I was kind of forced to go with that. I would have preferred to have gone with a matte or even a satin finish, but overall it turned out pretty good. So this pretty much takes care of that. I hope this video was informative for you. I hope it helped you out. Please send me any questions, any comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.